Inspector. And I'm also working with my colleague Clive Coyne, who is also a Chartered Town Planner and Planning Inspector. And we've been appointed by the Secretary of State to hold this examination and to produce a report of our conclusions and recommendations as to regard soundness and legal compliance. Today we're discussing matter 15, which is monitoring and implementation. And we were also doing what we've been calling a mop-up session later on today with the council, just regarding next steps for the plan. Robert Young's on the call. He's the programme officer for the examination, and he works for both Inspector Coyne and I independently of the council, and he's responsible for administrative arrangements. The session is being recorded today so that it can be popped on the council's website afterwards, because the live stream does not appear to be playing ball. I assume the press are on the Teams call, as they've been at every session. And just please can you make sure that if you're not actively participating, keep your microphone and camera off. Thank you. So our role, if you've not attended a local plan examination before, is to assess whether or not the plan is legally compliant and to determine whether or not this plan is sound. And in order for it to be sound, it needs to be positively prepared, justified, effective and consistent with national policy. We don't have an agenda for today as normal. We're just running through the matters, issues and questions. And then any further questions that we do have. I will pass over to the council now to introduce themselves, please.
Thanks, Mum. Good morning, everyone. My name's George Marshall. I'm the Assistant Service Lead for the local plan at Exeter City Council.
Good morning, everyone. Catherine Smith, Principal Planner at Exeter City Council.
Good morning, Jill Day, Exeter City Council, Local Plans Team. Thank you.
Good morning.
Hello. Oh no, I'm so sorry. That was me jumping in. I'll be quiet.
Sorry, Tim. Sorry, apologies. My camera is still not working today. It's Jenny Barnett, Local Plans Team, Exeter.
Tim Leader, barrister instructed by the City Council.
I think is that the council done?
That's the council complete, yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else then? Is Miss Damon here?
Yeah, I might leave my camera on so you know that I'm still here. That might be easier for everybody. So yeah, I'm Rachel Damon from the Home Builders Federation.
Thank you. Okay. Just before we start doing monitoring and implementation, there's an email that we've just got from the council about the NHS GP provision document. The link wasn't working yesterday, well, hasn't been working. And you've sent in that actual document link, so it's been replaced by another one. What does that mean for us in terms of if it's been replaced, that document?
Thanks, Mum. So really, we were just providing it for completeness. So the statement, our matter 13 hearing statement, included a link to that previous, what is now a superseded document. So for completeness, we've provided it in case that's useful. But colleagues from the NHS yesterday confirmed that there was a more up-to-date equivalent of that, which has been submitted to the examination, and I think it's been uploaded already. So it may be that the previous one is no longer relevant, but it is referenced in our hearing statement, and so you have it before you if that's of use.
Yeah, that it's useful that it's there. Could you maybe just mark it up on the website as it's superseded? It could, just so that it just reduces confusion if that document is been replaced by the other one the NHS provided yesterday.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Super. Okay then, so moving on to matter 15, which is monitoring and implementation. We've just asked one question about this. So what I'm going to do is, can you just run through, Mr. Marshall or whoever on behalf of the council, that your response, and then I've got a couple of questions, but what I'll do is I'll go to Ms. Damon next, and then we'll talk about any other questions we've got. So if you can run through your response first, please.
Yep, so that's me. So we're keen to ensure the monitoring framework's practical and realistic, and we consider the monitoring and review processes are effective. They've been discussed with key partners and in the formulation of them, and ensuring that they have the availability of data and can be involved where relevant. However, it is subject to the following modifications, which my colleagues are all going to take each one that kind of they lead on from now. So I think, Jill, you first.
Apologies, just getting my camera
That's all right. Don't worry.
turned on.
I do like it how you've all got a different Exeter background.
The
Did
beauty
you all
of
get to pick
Exeter.
one?
Yes. Yeah. So the first modification in that list is SAMM120. And that is a modification that relates to the flood risk monitoring target. And that's a very minor change to delete advice and insert objections. And that's to accord with the Environment Agency's document reporting on this issue. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be recommended by us.
Mum, could I just ask, we've listed these as additional. Are you happy with them being additional still?
I mean, how the policy is measured, so I'd probably be more inclined to say that the major mods. Would you, Clive?
Yeah, just put them in as main modifications. Yeah, just so it's covered. Yeah, because they do affect how it's measured on the ground and implemented. So and affect how we measure that and how you guys know whether it's working or not. So yeah, main modifications.
Thank you.
The next one is a housing one. So that's back to me. So SAM121 is a fairly basic change to a fairly basic modification we're proposing is just to insert city in front of council, so it's clear that it's the city council doing the delivery rather than, for example, Devon.
I mean, that we've just said all main mods, but I mean that probably could stay as an additional.
Yeah, exactly. It's whether it's just
text, so.
Yeah, it's the usual thing, whether it's just a clarification or a correction. That's usually, putting in city council for the name is a minor or additional modification, you should say. But yeah, if it's kind of how it's going to be measured and it's a bit more detail in it and it's changed it fundamentally to what was in there, then yeah, it would be a main modification.
Thank you. The next one is SAM122, which proposes various modifications to the affordable housing monitoring, but we have actually in the hearing statement 15, proposed further modifications to that particular modification. So I don't know whether it's worth just referring back to the hearing statement.
Yeah.
So on page.
Sorry.
On page.
Oh no, it's page 6.
Page 6, yes, page 6 of the hearing statement. So update of SAM122. We've proposed some alternative wording, and really this has come out of conversations that have happened during earlier hearing sessions. I think our conclusion has been that the most important thing to be monitoring for affordable housing and for build to rent in terms of affordable private rent delivery is the number of affordable homes being completed each year and also over the plan period. So we have proposed to completely replace the monitoring indicator and targets for policy H4 and policy H5 solely to refer to completions of affordable housing.
Yeah, I think that's better. It's clearer and it actually properly monitors the affordable housing rather than, you know, splitting it across certain sites or different. Yeah, we're concerned about the number of affordable houses that are being delivered. It doesn't matter on what site or where they are. So I think that's really, yeah, that makes more sense.
Thank you. That's good. SAMM 123 is the same thing again. It's just inserting city in front of council in the delivery mechanism section for policy H4 monitoring.
Yeah, that's can stay as a additional mod, and that's fine.
Great, thanks. SAMM 124, again, we have proposed an update to that in the hearing statement. Oh, have we? Sorry, just bear with me a second. I thought we had, maybe we haven't.
I think it's on page 8, is it? Of the hearing statement.
Yeah, it's because you've got some new ones, new indicators.
Yeah, you've got new ones in
before that. Yeah.
Before it, and yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Thanks. Yeah, so we have proposed, again, coming out of earlier discussions in previous hearing sessions, that in terms of monitoring accessible homes policy, we feel that it would be the most effective to be monitoring the average percentage of new build affordable homes that are permitted, that meet building regulations M43 standard, replacing what we were proposing previously, and also inserting some additional delivery mechanisms.
Yeah, that's I mean, that makes sense to me. Any comments from you, Clive, to Inspector Coyne?
No, it's okay to me. Yeah.
I'm just conscious. Miss Damon, do you want to jump in on these whilst we're running through these modifications? If you've got any concerns or if you've got any
I think
thoughts?
mine's a broader point that applies to all of them, which I think it reflects what the council have said, that what matters is there's no time frames, and actually it's the annual monitoring and then the over a plan period. And our concern is it doesn't say the kind of so what. So if you're not delivering affordable housing, what are you going to do? And you need to understand the why it's not delivering, because your actions would be different. So like, for example, the self-build policy, if you weren't delivering any self-build plots, is it because there's no demand? Is it because there's no mortgages? Is it because the sites aren't coming forward? So then the plan monitor manage bit requires you to understand what the monitoring's showing. And it's almost like there's a missing column about and then we do something. And normally that would say we do another plan, which we object to principally because actually there are things you can do before you do another plan. And obviously our comments in our statements and were before the local plan systems come in. So I don't think there's necessarily a need for a plan review policy, which we would normally have argued for because the new system's coming in. But that makes it even more important that the plan monitor manage bit kind of works and that the council takes action, which may just be speaking to our members. It may just be come and have a chat. Or if it's 110 litres per dwelling isn't happening, is there a problem? Is there an intervention? Is there a need for another meeting with South West Water to find out what the problem is? Or is it a viability issue? So I think the purpose of the monitoring is to find out if there's problems in delivering the schemes and then to do something to deliver the schemes. And I don't think that's reflected in the framework. So it's a general comment rather than a specific, but they're not smart targets. They don't have a per year and an overall plan period. And some of the policies are maybe in phases and you want to know after 5 years if it's happening, because it may be that it takes time for some of these things to bed in and the developers aren't doing it tomorrow for their application, but in 2 years they have factored it in and the landowner has accepted the problem. So it's not tracking what the plan is doing in the way that we would expect it to.
Okay, thank you. I will come back to that point afterwards when we run through the mods. And I just didn't know if you had any points about the mods that you wanted to come in on, so that's fine. Sorry, back to the council then in terms of, so there's H14 we just run through. And then are we back to SAM and 125?
That's the one. Yeah. So this relates to policy EJ6, and it is merely to ensure that the monitoring target complies with or accords with the actual policy text. So we've already discussed the amendments to delete transformational from the policy text. So this will ensure that the monitoring target accords with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That can stay as an additional.
So the next modification is SAMM 126, and this is in relation to policy HH1, which is our initial history and heritage policy, and this essentially provides clearer and tighter wording about what we will be monitoring in terms of historic England application responses. So currently the indicator was reading number of applications permitted contrary to historic England advice. And just to tighten that up, we're suggesting that advice is revised to objections, just so it's much clearer as to whether or not a response would be monitored as an objection or advice according to that indicator. The target has also been set out in a more concise way, so the target would be 0. It's effectively saying the same thing, but it's just clearer and shorter wording. That was agreed through the discussions that we had with Historic England following their representation, and that was tied up in a statement of common ground with them.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be recommended, and it would be a main mod.
The final one in the schedule of main mods is SAMM 127, which is proposed modifications to the housing trajectory summary that's in the back of the plan. We're proposing that the data be updated to reflect what's in the Exeter Plan housing trajectory. That said, I've realised that the data that's the figures that are in Appendix C of the schedule of modifications don't take account of the changes to Water Lane, so that would need to be reflected in the modifications as well.
Yeah, okay, understood. That's fine. It obviously just needs updating to reflect the current planning status of things. And that would be a main mod, because obviously it's going to be the trajectory that's in the plan. So and then is there some additional mods that are in the Appendix A of the hearing statement?
Yes, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. I couldn't unmute myself. Yes, there are. So turning to that one, in Appendix A of the hearing statement, the first one there is a new. Well, we've said it's a minor modification, but again, it may be main. We're proposing to change the indicator for monitoring policy H2 to the number of homes completed on allocated sites rather than permitted, feeling that it's more important to be monitoring completions.
So it's changes to permitted, not delivered or completed. Sorry,
yes, it's
permitted.
So it's changing from permitted to completed. So it would read number of homes completed on allocated sites.
Okay, sorry, I thought you were talking about H7 then, and I was confused. You're still on. You're on the first new one, yeah. It's because we've done H4. That's why I scrolled down. Yes, that makes sense. Yeah, we would definitely recommend that. Miss Damon, you're on mute.
Sorry, I think you need to monitor both, because that's the whole point. If you permitted it and it's not being built out, what's the problem? So I think for the purpose of the annual monitoring and the stats, maybe what matters is the completion. But if you have a problem, you know, because you permitted loads and nothing's come forward. That's kind of the point we're making.
I mean, that does make sense. It would give the council an indication of what delivery rates are like compared to commission rates. Is that something that you could include as well? That's quite easy to find out, isn't it?
Yes, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So there would be another indicator, so number of homes permitted and number of homes completed.
Yes.
And is it just on allocated sites, or what about windfalls, or is there another indicator for that?
I just need to go back and check the plan as to what the monitoring is for policy H1, whether we... Oh yes, so for policy H1, there is an indicator for additional homes permitted and additional homes completed. So it would be covered under the monitoring for policy H1. H2 just specifically refers to the allocations.
Okay. So you basically would have your allocations, and then your different numbers would indicate windfalls.
Yes. Yeah.
That's fine. Do you think, Inspector Coyne, there might need to be another separate indicator for windfalls, or do you think that that's easy enough to?
If it's already covered by policy H1 and how that's been monitored, then it should be okay, I think.
Thank you. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've done the next one, which is the update of SAMM 122. So SAMM, a new SAMM for custom and self-build housing. We have, again, following discussions in earlier hearing sessions, had a reconsideration of the indicator and the target for monitoring custom and self-build, and would like to propose instead to replace the term, replace delivered with permitted in the indicators. So it would read number of serviced plots for custom and self-build homes permitted. And that is because the legislation, custom and self-build legislation and PBG refer to permissions rather than completions or delivery. And then the target would relate back to the register. We feel that would be more effective and more in accordance with requirements with of the legislation.
Okay. So, because obviously at the minute you're expecting, you're saying that there's 400 to be, that's the demand. Because I obviously raised questions about this in this session, didn't I, about the fact that only 9 per annum have been delivered, and you're expecting quite a significant uplift in that. So your target's in line with the demand that's been expressed. What, like as Mr. Damon's actually said, what happens if that's not met? Because it's quite a high target, so it's just understanding how that works.
It's a good question. I'm not sure what the comeback is if local authorities aren't meeting their meeting the demand that's expressed by the register, other than if you have a planning application for custom and self-build, it would presumably be a material consideration that the demand isn't being met, and it would be potentially addressed through the appeals process or through planning applications. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Ms. Damon.
Yeah, I think our concerns from the other side, we're seeing these policies being implemented across the country, and what's actually happening is people say they want to self-build, they just say they want it and they can't afford it, they can't get it, they can't actually deliver it, there aren't any mortgages, all of those things. So then house builders apply to get the self-build plots reverted back to regular housing, and that's what you need to be monitoring because we think there's a problem nationwide that the self-build register evidence is so rubbish. So you absolutely need to be monitoring if applications are coming in to change the self-build plots back to regular housing, because that suggests there's a bigger problem kind of nationally. It's not the council's fault. I think the target of how many they've permitted is what they're required to do under the self-build register, and that's fine. But for positive plan making, if this is a nonsense and doesn't deliver any housing, we need to know it's a nonsense and isn't delivering any housing. So that's a different indicator that also needs to be looked at, we would argue.
Yeah, I would agree, actually. I think that would help if you can monitor the amount of applications or the amount of dwellings that then you would revert back to market housing if they're not being delivered as self-build following the developer's requirements to go through the marketing, etc., that they need to go through for that. I mean, it might also be handy to have an indicator about delivery or as well, so that you can monitor your permissions compared to your delivery, because obviously the policies that you've got for the larger housing sites are requiring a certain amount of custom self-build. Developers are going to put that forward as part of their proposals to comply with the policy, but if they're not, they might not actually get built out, potentially, depending upon the demand. So that, I think that would be quite helpful to indicate how that policy is working.
Okay, that's fine, sure.
Any thoughts from you, Inspector Coyne, on that before I move on to the next one?
Oh, it's fine. We can move on.
Thank you.
Can I just
Sorry,
ask?
Mr. Levy, you've got your hand up.
No, I was only going to ask one question really, which is what does the actual delivery of self-build housing actually tell you? I mean, if you're going to, I mean, I'm just wondering whether that's a particularly intelligent indicator at all. I mean, on the face of it, it just tells you that they haven't been provided. It doesn't give you any understanding why, does it?
No, and I think that's the problem, isn't it? Is that there's so many people that are on the register, but the delivery of these is sort of minimal in the last few years. Clearly, this policy is going to facilitate, and the policies within the housing allocations are going to facilitate an increase, but it's how and if that gets delivered.
I just wondered whether it's one of those targets that people set because they feel they've got to set a target, but actually when you measure it, it tells you absolutely nothing at all. Anyway, that's perhaps not, perhaps that's not a reason for, well, I think it is a reason for not recording it actually, but it seems that the demand for indicators requires that they be provided anyway, whether they've got any utility or not. I just can't see what the utility of the indicator is because it doesn't actually tell you anything at all, other than that something you thought you had to do isn't being done, but that might because what you thought you were doing was pointless anyway, or not required really anyway. Do you see what I mean? I mean, unless you've got indicators that go behind the indicator, it's one of those completely pointless local government indicators that people do insist on recording, which actually is just a waste of effort, perhaps. Sorry. That's spoken by somebody who used to be in local government, who used to have to record these darn things and always thought it was entirely pointless. Anyway.
Ms. Damon.
Yeah, I think it is important because you then have a list of the cases, and if you wanted to go and do a deep dive and find out what the problem with self-build was, you could look at the cases and if it's a viability argument, you'd have a viability assessment with those cases. So it's just providing the details of those applications that are affected.
I think it would be helpful to record it, and then you could deep dive at that point. And I think it potentially would be helpful going forward with the council in terms of any further new local plans that they develop in how they can assess customer self-build housing need as well, because they'd have that evidence of what's been permitted, what's been delivered, and applications where it's potentially been applied to remove that requirement.
Yeah, I think the clues in the name, they're indicators, aren't they? So it will highlight an issue if there is one, and then something can be done about it if it's necessary.
Shall I continue?
Yes, please.
So the next one is a new Sam, to policy H10, purpose-built student accommodation monitoring. We've just proposed to amend the indicator to refer to number of additional purpose-built student accommodation bed spaces completed. So again, it's referring to completions, which it always was, but just rephrasing how it was. Yeah, essentially. So possibly
I think it's clearer, but it's probably a main mod because you've put in additional as well rather than just number. So it slightly changes how you potentially would monitor that. So
okay, thank you. The next one is relating to the Gypsy and Traveller accommodation monitoring. Again, it's just a rewording, so it's referring to completion rather than delivery. And so it's just consistent with how other indicators are worded in terms of referring to completion.
Yeah, that's fine. My question on this one was the GTAA says that it was a need of 1, wasn't it? I know that you've looked at 6 because of looking at unmet need as well. It was just whether 6 was actually the target or whether it was 1, because it's not. It was 1 actual GTAA need that met the PPTS definition, and then it was up to 6 in terms of additional. So it's just that indicator might potentially, or target is, I'm just concerned that doesn't get met because clearly the Gypsy and Traveller need in the area is quite small. So I don't know. It was just a thought out loud, really.
I think what we were trying to do there is cover the fact that the definition, although we're obviously being examined under a definition in 2020, was relevant in 2023, the definition's changed, and so for equalities reasons, we were just trying to reflect the fact that the need is for 6 if you take it into account the new definition, but we would be happy to revert back to 1.
Okay, no, I think leave it as 6, and then it's like you say, you're covering the new definition. If that props up then at an appeal in the future, you can say that indicator was whilst we were examining under 2023, it was we considered it as the new definition. I think that will probably be more helpful actually.
Okay, thank you. I'll now hand over to Jill, if that's all right.
Yes.
So this, I think it might be the final one, is an amendment to the target for green infrastructure. This is to update the indicator and target for NE4 to reflect the wording in the policy, which relates to number of large-scale development proposals. So it's just to delete the word residential to accord with the policy text. I think we may have mentioned that in the hearing session.
Yeah, and that would be recommended. I think that needs to be a main mod as well, rather than, because obviously it's reflecting a policy wording.
Yeah.
Miss Damon.
Yeah, I just think particularly because biodiversity net gain is a new policy, you should be monitoring whether it's being delivered on site, off site, or through statutory credits, because then that can then link into the local nature recovery strategy, because the council wants it to be local where possible, and so if it's not delivering locally on site, then that would indicate something else needed to be done and needed to feed into the local nature recovery strategy. So I think my general points about generally you need to plan, monitor, manage, but particularly for this very new policy, it's particularly important to monitor those 3 different ways of delivering it.
Thoughts from the council on that?
So obviously the minor amendment that I've just mentioned relates to the green infrastructure strategy specifically. Obviously we do additional monitoring in relation to biodiversity net gain as required by the legislation, the duty to monitor, and indeed the council is already reporting on that. It forms part of the evidence for the plan. So yeah, we will continue to obviously monitor biodiversity net gain, both in terms of cases and delivery, and that will be reported through the annual report on biodiversity.
Which is why the indicator can say on-site, off-site statutory credits, because it's being monitored anyway. You should list it as an indicator.
Can it be listed as an indicator in terms of on-site, off-site and statutory credits?
So we could introduce it. I think because the legislation is very specific in regard to the monitoring, there may be some crossover, and indeed the policy doesn't require that. It's the legislation that requires that rather than the actual Exeter local plan. So to me, the monitoring of the Exeter local plan should relate to the policy requirements in that local plan. So just in my mind, it seems to make more sense that the legislative monitoring takes that forward, and that the monitoring for the Exeter plan looks at delivering the policies in the Exeter plan.
Any thoughts from your Inspector Coyne?
Yeah, I can see the point that Ms. Day is making. It is to monitor the plan and the policies within it. If it's something outside of that, or maybe it's something that could be referred to in the round in the annual monitoring report. I don't know. I think Ms. Damon wants to come back in.
Yeah, it relates to the whole spatial strategy of Exeter and this argument they've made about the green links and the green infrastructure and everything and how it all fits together. And because it's a new policy, it really does matter whether you're delivering your biodiversity in Exeter or whether you're delivering it in Cornwall, and you need to know that. And that should be an indicator of the plan, is our view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
understand the point.
Yeah, I think it is something that we may be able to pick up both through the, as I say, the statutory requirement for monitoring, and through the annual monitoring report. Yeah.
So I was thinking, yeah. Okay. Any way to do it?
Okay. I've just got a couple of questions then. Councillor, well, the Green Party, so Councillor Moore's comments. She's talked about CC9 monitoring for ecological and chemical status. I know we talked about a main mod that inserted chemical into the policy. I mean, that's a long time ago, but I think that's what we did.
So in relation to that, I had a conversation following the hearing session with the Environment Agency, and I had confirmation from them that that's something the Environment Agency monitor.
Right.
So that's their requirement to monitor it. Obviously, we would be supporting schemes that help contribute, but again, we're not really delivering the overall outcome. That is part of the statutory requirements for the Environment Agency to monitor.
Yeah. Okay. And then my other questions were STC1 down to where there isn't an indicator for that, but perhaps could there be an additional indicator? Because the aim is to achieve a goal of 50% of trips within the city being taken by active travel. That's in the supporting text. Is that something that could then translate into the indicator or not?
Thanks, Mum. So I've had some conversations with colleagues from Devon County Council on this one, because the ambition is consistent between the plan and then the LTP and the Exeter transport strategy. It's an ambition as opposed to a specific target, and on that basis it's not included in the policies of the Exeter plan. I have spoken to colleagues from the county to consider discuss with them whether that 50% could be strictly monitored, and because it's such an overarching ambition, it would be very challenging to monitor it very, very specifically. So we have considered whether or not that's a possibility, but it's rather than a city council function, it would sit more easily with a county, but equally, as it's an ambition as opposed to a specific target, it's very, and given the availability of data, it would be very challenging to report on it specifically. So on that basis, we don't have an indicator on that specific ambition. Rather, alternatively, we've included a series of other indicators relating to, for example, active travel and public transport, which would almost, I suppose, be a proxy for that wider ambition and that wider approach. So we have indicators for STC 3 relating to number of key trips or cycle trips on key active travel routes, and then we also have STC 4, which looks at bus and rail patronage. So it's something that we have considered, but in terms of the overall and overarching nature of the ambition and the availability of data, we don't think it would be appropriate to include it specifically.
Okay, that's understood. Thank you. Then I've written no, I've put any policies tree targets. There's targets missing, but I don't know what that means now. I've come back to it. So I've clearly written this note a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to just ignore that because I don't know where I've got what I'm meaning by that, because the tree target. Just trying to work out now where we are.
Is it the NE7 tree canopy cover?
Tree canopy cover.
Yeah.
Could be that. Target isn't missing, so I don't really know where I've got that from. So just ignore me. I must have been dreaming at the time or something. Okay. Then there's another comment. So we talked in the heritage sessions about the indicators. I think it was Councillor Moore mentioned it about the fact that it was objections from Historic England rather than it being concerns or if anything else raised. It was just, was there anything more further thought on that? I've written a note following that session about it, so it's just any response from the council.
Nothing specific in addition, Mum. The revision that we've suggested through the modification picks up on the representation of Historic England. We felt that it would be much clearer to monitor on a definitive objection as opposed to a concern. I think it'd be very hard to monitor concerns when there could be issues raised by Historic England on various elements of a proposal, and so trying to understand and monitor very clearly the level of concern, if you like, from a representation at planning application stage would be very challenging. So we've tried to tighten it by making reference to objection as opposed to advice or concerns, as per Councillor Moore's suggestion.
Thank you. That's noted. Then just looking at EJ1 and EJ3, there isn't any sort of specific target floor space for those. It's just additional floor space permitted. It's not really a target as such. It's just almost the same as the indicator. So it just seems a little bit weak in terms of the expectations of the amount of employment that you're expecting to deliver it. Would it be better to have numbers in there or not?
Yeah, certainly we could insert the numbers in accordance with the amendments made to the text in that chapter. So certainly in terms of EJ6, for example, where we are stating the allocations made, we could insert the hectares that we're hoping to deliver as part of the target, and then yes, monitor against that. That makes sense to me. In terms of EJ1, I had a thought that might address your point, which is in relation to, again, we have suggested inserting a jobs growth number into the policy. So we could add an additional monitoring of that. So yeah, I mean, it would be certainly easy enough to monitor jobs growth annually, so we could insert another target relating to that. Be happy to do that.
Yeah, that would be, I just think it would, you just essentially not really got any targets there. It's just the amount of floor space. It doesn't indicate anything to me. It would just indicate, does that make sense? It's not a target in line with what the growth you're expecting.
Yeah.
So it's just to reflect what's in the policy, essentially.
Can you just bear with me just one moment?
I can, yeah, of course, yeah.
Sorry, just confirming that. But yeah, very happy to insert a target, a new monitoring target for EJ1 relating to jobs growth, and to insert, yes, the amount of allocated land as a new target for EJ6 to ensure we're meeting that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then just last one from me, RFC1. It's just understanding, how's that measured, the increase in footfall compared to the previous year? Is that something that somebody, because I just don't know how you do that as a planner, but clearly you're going to get that from somewhere else.
Yeah, thanks, Mum. That's measured through a work we do with our city centre team, who also have links with our business improvement district in Exeter. And so there's a series of monitoring which takes place at least annually, it's possibly quarterly, in key sections of the high street, for example, in the primary shopping area. So that's something that we monitor already, and so it would be essentially a continuation of that approach.
Thanks, that's helpful. It's more of a understanding of how it's done. Okay, I don't have any other questions on monitoring. I don't know if you do, Inspector Coyne.
No. But I suppose getting back to Ms. Daneman's point at the beginning, I think we might have to just have a little bit of a think about any potential actions. What would they do if the monitoring wasn't, or if the targets weren't hit? What would the potential? It doesn't have to be very detailed. It could just be a few lines, just to maybe I would think about doing that, and then we'll consider it when we're looking at the modifications in the round as well. I had one other broad point, which is not to do with monitoring or implementation. It's probably something we should have asked earlier in the sessions, but it's just very broadly, if the council just could give us a brief explanation of what the local government reorganisation for Exeter and the Greater Exeter area is going to look like, and when it's going to happen, if it hasn't. I think it's already in train potentially. Just just for our information, so that we're clear on it before we decide anything. That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. I'm sure the whole team's queuing up to answer this question. So yes, it's in train locally in Devon. There are a number of proposals across the county that were set out by different groups of councils across different geographies. They've been consulted upon as of the spring, and this summer the government will announce which its preferred option is. The idea being then that is set up over the course of the next 18 months or so. So there would be elections for whatever the shadow council looks like in May of next year, so May 27, and then the new council or councils, whatever the structure looks like, would be fully fledged and implemented by April 28. There are, as I said, there are a number of different proposals across Devon involving full county unitary, different areas, different districts put together, wider areas within districts. There was a number of different proposals, and as of this point, we don't have any clarity as to which of those would be taken forward.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. That's helpful.
Did you have any response, Mr. Marshall, or anyone from the council in terms of the point made by Ms. Damon about the sort of the so what?
Just to say that we would monitor through the annual monitoring report and investigate the reasons for the data set out in our indicators, and we would be looking at that clearly annually through the AMR. So although the framework doesn't set out actions, for example, it's something that should be tied up through the AMR. If it were helpful, we could look at an additional modification to make that clear. I think paragraph 17.3 of the submission plan within the monitoring framework section makes reference to the AMR. So it is something that we could insert, I think, quite easily into that paragraph, or it's somewhere else in that introductory section. So that's something that we could provide alongside the modifications if helpful.
Ms. Damon?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. One option is to add another column to the table, but I understand that creates a lot of work. So just that there will be commentary provided in the AMR that identifies key issues and key problems around delivery, and then the council will investigate actions, whatever they might be. I think that would be helpful just to make that clear, that that's the process.
Yeah, I agree. So an extra bit of supporting text on 17.3 will be helpful, please.
Yeah. Agreed.
And would that be a main modification?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so basically any change to the plan which materially affects how the policies would be implemented or how they would work is a main modification.
Okay, I think that concludes the monitoring and implementation session. Anything anybody else wants to add? Ms. Damon?
I just had a procedural question. I understand yesterday there was a lot of discussion about the new evidence, and just when the main modification consultation goes out, it would be helpful for it to identify what the new evidence is so people can find it amongst the raft of information that's available for them to comment on.
Yeah, I'm sure the council can do something on their website to accompany the main mods with new evidence. Mr. Marshall?
Yes, thanks, Mum. So we haven't worked out quite what this will look like as yet, but I would imagine we would have a separate area of the local plan website for the main modifications consultation. So the evidence base would remain elsewhere, but anything new we could include there for clarity and for ease of reference.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you. Even for us. Finding things.
Would help us as well, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Right, we'll take a short break. We'll come back at 12:15, and then we'll just do the extra sort of mop-up session with the council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.